In this tutorial, we will discuss some techniques to help you design efficient questionnaires with a clear structure. There is usually more than one way of transforming a paper questionnaire into a CAPI or CAUI equivalent. In some cases, new interactive elements simplify the structure present in paper questionnaires and allow for doing things more efficiently. However, in other cases, the CAPI version imposes a rigidity of structure that is absent in a paper questionnaire. When you develop a CAPI or CAUI questionnaire, you should choose a questionnaire structure that is convenient for the interviewers, is optimal to run on the tablet or in the browser, and that is easy to maintain and modify. The structure of the questionnaire chosen during the design will also have implications for the structure of the exported data. Recommendations on the questionnaire structure. A good questionnaire has a clear structure that helps interviewers to navigate through different parts of the questionnaire. Sections and subsections should be used to make questionnaire navigation easier. It is not advisable to create questionnaires consisting of just a few sections with many questions in each section. It is always better to split your questionnaire by topics and subtopics. Putting many questions into one section or subsection complicates the interview process for the interviewer and for the respondent. It also complicates the process of finding and correcting errors, and, in extreme cases, might slow down the tablet user interface. Another reason for placing questions together in a common subsection is that an enabling condition can then be applied to all of them. This is a common situation when the questions are applicable to a subpopulation, like adults, women, employed persons, students, commuters, and so on. Self-keyword. The keyword self can be used in validation conditions to substitute for the variable name of the current question. Suppose you have a question asking the age of a respondent in years. The variable associated with this question is age. A validation condition that asserts the entered age falls in the range between 0 and 100 is then age greater than equal 0 and age less than equal 100. Or using a built-in function, you can also type age.inRange parenthesis 0, 100 end parenthesis. The error message associated with this validation condition is the age you entered is out of range. Entering the value of 104 will produce an error. Imagine now that you want to rename the age variable to age in years to improve questionnaire readability. Then you will also need to change the variable name in the validation condition to age in years greater than equal to 0 and age in years less than equal to 100. Alternatively, you can use the keyword self. In that case, the validation condition will be self greater than equal to 0 and self less than equal to 100. The keyword self is an alias for the variable name of a current question. Regardless of the changes in variable name, the condition will be valid. The error message confirms that the age of 104 is outside of the acceptable range. Another useful application of the self keyword is the simplification of copying questions with similar validation or enabling conditions. Suppose you have a set of several questions about time spent by respondent on various activities. You want to make sure that the time spent for each activity is less than 16 hours per day. You can create a question, for example, time spent on the first job, and set a validation condition self.inRange 1, 16. Then you can create copies of this question for each job, and the validation condition will be valid for each job without any changes. After you copy and paste a question in the same questionnaire, be sure to change its variable name. Macros. Macros are the strings that are substituted in the expressions before the questionnaire compilation. Following the previous example about time spent on different jobs, you can use macro substitution to achieve even better efficiency and readability of your questionnaire and validation conditions. Click on the macro icon on the left panel of the designer screen. Then click Add New Macro. Type in the macro name, for example, time constraint, and the content of the macro, self.inrange 1,16. You might also add a description explaining what this macro is for, such as defines working hours limits on jobs during the day. Press Save to save your macro. Once you define a macro, you can use it in a validation condition by specifying the name of the macro preceded by the $sign. In our example, we can rewrite the validation condition with the macro by typing $time constraint instead of self.inrange 116. An immediate benefit of such substitution is that you improve the readability of the validation condition. The validation will still function in the same way, so entering the value of 18 hours as an answer to this question will result in an error. Imagine now you decide that the duration of each activity should not exceed 8 hours. If you have many activities, you would have to replace the upper time limit from 16 to 8 in the validation conditions for all expressions. But if you use macros, you simply replace the upper limit in the macro, save the macro, and the new upper limit on daily activities will be applied to all the activities. Now, if we enter 10 hours as the value, an error will be produced. Variables. Variables in survey solutions are objects that can be calculated in the runtime and that can be used in both validation and enabling conditions. Variables can be of various types: numeric, string, Boolean, and more. With variables, you can create objects of virtually unlimited complexity. Variables, among other things, can significantly simplify your questionnaire. Most of the things you can do with macros can be done with variables. In our example of validating answers to the age question, we can create a variable containing the validation condition. To do this, right-click on a location where you want to create a variable, likely in the beginning of a section or roster, and select Add Variable After from the drop-down menu. Select variable type Boolean, define the variable name, for example, age limit, specify the variable label, age upper and lower bounds, and the variable expression, age in years greater than equal to 0 and age in years less than equal 100. Click Save. Now you can see the variable you just created in the left panel of the designer. The variable returns true if an answer to age question falls into the range between 0 and 100, and is false if it falls otherwise. Now you can replace a validation condition for the age question to age limit equals true. Similar to a macro, you can simply change the variable for the changes to be propagated to all places where the variable age limit is used. Similarly, you can use variables in error messages. Let's do this for questions about time spent at work. Create a new variable. Select variable type string. Define the variable name, for example, time error. Specify the variable label, time error, and the variable expression, working hours per day cannot exceed 8. You can now use the variable substitution in error messages for all job-related questions. Record only relevant, non-duplicative information. Paper questionnaires often ask interviewers to report their names, ID numbers, the names of their survey supervisors or teams, and other types of meta-information on the interview. In most cases, Survey Solutions records such information automatically. Survey Solutions tracks the names of the field staff that took part in the data collection and verification automatically, so there is no need to include the names or codes of the interviewers and supervisors as questions in the questionnaire. Automatic tracking reduces the time needed for interviews, reduces the number of errors in these questions, and increases the security of the data by opening the possibility of an audit. For more information, please visit our site.